The Trump administration wants to end a long-standing agreement in which the government said it would provide basic rights and services to migrant children in its custody. The nearly three-decade-long settlement, known as the Flores Agreement, requires immigration officials to hold migrant children in facilities that are safe and sanitary. The government also has to provide them with access to lawyers and ensure that they receive an expeditious release from government custody. For more, let's bring in CBS News immigration and politics reporter Camilo Montoya-Galvez. So, Camilo, what exactly would getting rid of this mean for migrant children currently in U.S. custody?
Well, the termination of this court settlement would be a dramatic and significant change in U.S. immigration policy, and also on how the U.S. has to treat migrant children, both those who are unaccompanied, but also those who are crossing the U.S.-Mexico border with their parents as part of family units. For nearly 30 years now, this agreement has governed not only the standards and conditions in detention facilities housing migrant children, but it has also allowed independent lawyers to inspect the detention facilities that are housing these minors and to ensure that the government is complying with the provisions of this agreement, which also includes a requirement for the U.S. to expeditiously seek the release of children from detention so they can reunite with relatives or other sponsors in the U.S. The Justice Department now is arguing that this agreement has incentivized illegal immigration by unaccompanied children and families with minors, and that it has essentially inhibited the executive branch from setting immigration policy, and now it is seeking to terminate it once again. The first Trump administration tried to do the same back in 2019, but that effort was stopped by the courts, and the courts this time around will also get to weigh in before any termination actually takes place.
Okay. Mahmoud Halil, the Columbia University graduate who was detained in March, faced a hearing in immigration court Thursday. What happened? We're
still awaiting on any updates from Mr. Khalil's lawyers and his legal team. But what we do know is that the immigration judge at the Louisiana Detention Center, where Mr. Khalil has been held for weeks since his arrest in March, was set to decide two main questions. That judge already decided back in April that Mr. Khalil is deportable based on this argument by the administration that his presence here and activities in the U.S. threaten the foreign policy interests of the country. But she also has to decide whether the administration has sufficient legal grounds to argue that he is also deportable based on the argument that he committed immigration fraud by failing to disclose certain information in his green card application. The second motion the judge had to decide on is whether Mr. Khalil qualifies for asylum or any other protection from deportation based on the argument that he could face persecution if he is deported from the U.S. So once we get that update, I'm sure we'll be back here discussing that issue again.
Sure we will. Jimena Arias Cristobal, who was mistakenly pulled over in Georgia,
That's right,
but ultimately detained because she's accused of being in the country illegally, had a bond hearing. When do we think she'll be released from custody?
Well, I spoke to Jimena's mom this afternoon, and she told me that Jimena is set to return home tonight at some point, that the lawyers were able to post a $1,500 bond that was set by the immigration judge because, again, the judge found that even though she's deportable because she's in the country illegally, she was not a flight risk or a threat to public safety and could continue her immigration proceedings outside of a detention center. So she could very well come home tonight.
Okay. Camilo Montoya-Galvez, thank you.